Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I am Caroline Fowler, the Interim Director of the Research and Academic Program here at the Clark, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here this morning to the Art Academy's Outside Europe Symposium. I cannot imagine a better event with which to kick off our academic year here at the Clark, an institution with a collection of painting that is admittedly in many ways an embodiment and speaks to the Western academic tradition of painting. Yet as the field of art history is in the seismic process of reconfiguring its centers and peripheries, its understanding of what a global art history might look like, or what possible methods and worlds may be configured for the future, Yukio Lippit's and Claudia Mattos' Avolese's symposium today, Art Academies Outside Europe, offers a powerful argument for the importance of attending to institutional structures, which are not only the foundation of our discipline, art history, but also a foundation for what it means to see, to teach, and to configure artistic practice. In 1940, Nicholas Pevsner published Academies of Art Past and Present, which begins in the Athenian Agora and ends with the possibilities of artistic education under fascism in Italy. Needless to say, Pevsner draws a direct line between the strength of an artist's academy and an absolutist state. And although Pevsner's text obviously should no longer stand as the authoritative study on the academy, it offers a powerful reminder that artistic education is never just about painting, sculpture, architecture, and the arts writ large. It is about institutional power, government, authority, and the ways in which people are taught to see and to envision their world for a wider public. I can therefore not think of a more important topic today than re-examining these crucial questions in relationship to the Artists' Academy outside Europe. I would like to thank the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, which has generously provided funding for this event, and I would like to thank the administrative staff here at the Clark, Samantha Page and Deb Fair, who have provided invaluable support with on-the-ground logistics. And I would thank Olivier Mellet, our director, for supporting this event, and Mark Gottlieb, director of the graduate program here at the Clark, for being an invaluable sponsor of this symposium. Please join me in welcoming Claudia Mattos Avolese and Yukio Lippit, who will take it from here and guide you over the next 2 days through this necessary and important terrain of art history. Thank you.
So good morning to everyone. I want to start by thanking the Clark, Caroline Fowler in particular, and Samantha Page and Deb for making possible this symposium possible. And I want to really thank my colleague, Yukio Lippit, for his willingness to share this, this enterprise of organizing this wonderful symposium that is touching on topics that are really, really very important to me, and I think also to him, and I hope to all of us. Well, we decided to make this introduction very short because we really are looking forward to listening to the papers. But I would like to just say a few words and about why we think this symposium is so vital and important, especially at this specific moment. No? So the Academy, as Caroline just reminded us, is a very established theme within the traditional frame of our discipline of art history, and not only the study of academies in Europe, such as the French Academy, the Italian Academy, and other academies that arrived in the 17th and 18th century, but also in different countries across the world, the academies play a central role in the establishment of art history, art historical narratives that were mainly tied to the construction of identities, national identities. This is certainly the case of Brazil, where I come from, where the Academy was founded in 1816 by a group of French artists exiled from France, fleeing from Napoleon, fleeing from I mean the restoration after the fall of Napoleon. And in Brazil, for sure, it inaugurates what for many, many decades was considered to be plain art history, which obviously exiled and expelled a whole bunch of other traditions from the scope of our discipline. And I think the Academy had for a long time this central position as a conservative element within the discipline. Therefore, it might be kind of odd and strange to choose the Academy in this moment, no? As a way to propose a new approach to art history, and especially to think in more global terms. However, traditionally, the traditional art histories center the Academy always in a kind of bilateral relation to one country specifically, and through that, working vertically, it builds up on these connections and establishing specific national connections. But it never really looks at, sort of say, a horizontal perspective. And in this horizontal perspective, we actually find a very good path to radically transform our perspective within art history and look at it as a global phenomenon. So this seminar is actually an attempt to look and study how French academic models operated within this global scale, producing a framework for the development of a globalized world, which is the world we actually are living in. Well, yesterday at dinner, we were commenting on how the ideas about the global art history has changed significantly in the last maybe 2 decades. In the 1990s and in the 2000s, there were important attempts, such as David Summers' book or Hans Belting, for example, to find new theories and methods that would allow art history to deal with any kind of visual material across all kinds of borders. So it was kind of like a real optimistic moment, and I remember I was very enthusiastic about it. But in my opinion, this attempt was actually embedded in a kind of excessive optimism that produced an imaginary of a world in constant movement with no frontiers, where everything and everyone was put in circulation in a very happy way, very easy way. But after these 2 decades, times have changed a lot, and we live in a world where barriers and frontiers and exclusions are stronger every day. And I do think that to respond to this challenge, we need once again to turn to our historical material, to examine the processes of transplant and transformation of the French academic model in comparative terms, the way we are trying to look at it now. Looking at how it operates in a global scale is, in my opinion, a way to think about global art history in complex historical terms. This approach also helps to keep our optimism about globalization in general and about a global art history in particular in check, since it helps to reveal the tensions, conflicts, structures of powers involved in the construction of a globalized world as we know it. No? So this symposium was born from a seminar that Yukio and I taught together at Harvard. And we were scholars coming from very different contexts. I'm basically a scholar from Latin America working on Latin American material, and Yukio is a Japanese scholar working on East Asia. But we found out that we had this particular interest in the academy and started to talk about that and discover that, in fact, this was a very stimulating conversation. So we centered our our course around this theme. And we just had such incredible material come up, and from students, and even listening to my colleague, I learned so much. And I started to really reposition the importance and the richness of dealing with this topic. So after we finished the course, both of us decided it would be really important, it would be fantastic if we could go on discussing this, expanding the scope of scholars involved in this discussion. So we're very happy to be here today. I'm really curious about the results of this event and how we are going to set discussions and conversations. And I basically want really to welcome you all, and I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen in the next 2 days. So thank you very much, and now I invite Kiyu to go on talking a little bit more specifically about like the image and a little bit more about the basis of what we want to do here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Let me join Caroline and Claudia in also welcoming you and thank you for attending this symposium. I wanted to thank the Clark Art Institute, to Caroline Fowler, who has really coached us through the preparation for this conference, and not just served as an institutional host, but also really lent her kind of vision and helped us shape this conference to the state in which it'll unfold over the next 2 days. Also to Samantha Page, to Mark Gottlieb, to the Clark Art Institute staff, and the moderators and participants, everybody who participated. It's a real privilege for me to be a co-organizer and participant in this gathering. I'd like to supplement Claudia Mattos' remarks by saying a few words on this question of the Art Academy based upon my perspective as a specialist in Japanese and East Asian art. Now, in the context of Japanese art, the establishment of a Western-style art academy, the Tokyo Art School, or Tokyo Bijutsu-Gakko, in 1889, looms large. It was all-important to the domestication in Japan of art as a system of institutions and practices associated with the concept of the Beaux-Arts in early modern Europe. It was crucial to the emergence of Japanese art history as a discipline, as the first comprehensive lectures on the history of Japanese art were delivered by Okakura Kakuzo for the incoming class there in 1890. Until this period, Japan had no real culture of public exhibition, but the founding of the Academy promoted a program of nationally sponsored public exhibitions, salons, to showcase the works of its students and teachers. And of course, it also led to the introduction of new practices in this context, including plein air painting, drawing from models, the establishment of the genre of the nude, and not without significant controversy. Indeed, the work that was chosen for the poster advertising the conference that you see here, which is Kuroda Seiki's Wisdom, Impression, and Sentiment, embodies the kind of some of the remarkable innovation, but also growing pains that were catalyzed by the presence of the Academy. Kuroda was the Academy's first professor of Western-style painting, or yoga, and he very proactively created paintings that were not only introducing, you might say, what he conceived of as academic practices in a Japanese context, but were advocates for these practices in a very polemical environment. This triptych, which not only was trying to, you might say, domesticate the genre of the nude in Japan, but also the very idea of allegorical painting, while combining it with traditional practices associated with Japanese painting, such as a gold background combined with the kind of Northern Renaissance triptych imagery and so forth. But even more impactful was the influence of the Western-style art academy on something that in Japanese is known as Nihonga, which is a term that literally means Japanese painting and actually refers to a new type of modern neo-traditional painting that maintained the subject matter, formats, and materials of traditional painting, but combined it selectively with elements of European pictorialism. This experimentation in what is known as Nihonga had already begun in the 1880s and was in a dialectical relationship with the Art Academy, and was promoted by several influential figures. The first professor of Japanese painting, of art history at the Academy, Okakura Kakuzo, but also the American philosopher Ernest Fenollosa. And what is interesting about this category of Nihonga is that it should be understood as more interrogative than categorical. It was meant to represent, it was meant to transmit traditional Japanese painting practice to ensure its survival and flourishing in the present, but also to posit an aspirational model for what Japanese art should be to the future of a modern nation state like Japan. And when the Tokyo Art Academy was founded in 1889, interestingly, oil painting actually wasn't initially taught. The only type of painting that was given instruction there was Nihonga, this hybrid genre that emerged only because of the institutionalization of art with a capital A in Japan. And Nihonga would undergo an interesting history that constantly evolved and queried what were precisely the natural, what was the material profile and the palette appropriate to traditional Japanese painting as it was being defined going forward. And there were various propositions put forth by artists that emphasized linearity, the traditional outline and infill mode of Japanese pictorialism, or eliminated it altogether in favor of wash-based, watery painting effects, in effect trying to blend traditional Japanese painting materials, including the animal glue binder, with oil painting effects, and would eventually lead to interesting and bizarre attempts in the 1920s to actually combine oil painting and traditional Japanese mineral pigments in the same palette. And this series of experiments by Nihonga artists would continue well into the post-war period and would become, in fact, de rigueur for whenever traditional temples refurbished their interior mural decor. And it should also be noted that in contemporary art, this genre of Nihonga that was institutionalized with the founding of the Art Academy served as the pedagogical basis for many of the most famous contemporary artists from Japan practicing today, including Yoshitomo Nara and Takashi Murakami, who were trained in very traditional Nihonga techniques at the Tokyo University of Fine Arts, which is the present version, contemporary version of the Tokyo Art Academy. When I had the privilege of teaching at the University of Campinas in Brazil in 2015, Claudia Mattos was my host faculty, and we began to compare notes and realize that we were both interested in the question of the Art Academy outside Europe in our own way, despite the fact that our material seemed so visually disparate and disconnected at the beginning. We agreed that we had been both pulled into many kinds of panels, conferences, and symposia on world art, which were amorphous and didn't always result in meaningful kind of understanding. Very gassy conversations that could be more grounded by looking through a more specific institutional lens. And through our jointly taught seminar at Harvard, we began to conceive of a gathering in which a consortium of case studies about the art academy outside Europe would possibly lead to a more multinodal vision of art historical practice, of comparative art historical practice in an expanded field that allowed us to understand through the lens of the academy what it told us about local conditions of artistic practice, of art in relation to or in service to the state, of the sociality of art, how art worked in the public sphere, how it related to traditional models of cultural production, and so forth. In turn, we felt that these case studies of the art academy around the world might help us to defamiliarize academic practice. And I think our colleagues who study European academic art would also agree that the art academy in Europe also needs a great deal of defamiliarization. These are large questions and they're ambitious, but I think we have an extremely interesting, compelling group of speakers to help us explore these issues. In fact, I would say that this is easily the most interesting group of and diverse group of speakers that I've ever had the privilege of working with. So I'm looking forward very much to the conference. And again, I welcome and thank all of you.